Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Nick and you're here on Foggy Designs. Today we're going to start working on some of the body work of the 1968 Karmann Ghia. Excuse me, I put my tongue there. But first we got to do a little bit of cleanup. We got to get the wheels off because we're going to start at the driver's side right behind the headlight bucket. And I'll show you guys some tips and tricks in there. But first we can jump into a time lapse. Going to clean up a little bit around the car, get the wheels off, and get moving from there. Alright guys, I got the front two tires off and cleaned up a little bit around it. My recycle bin's a little full and it's raining, so I don't really want to go and get outside. So I didn't get as much cleaning down as I wanted. But we're going to start working up here on this fender. It's kind of been beat up and mangled. There's a crease running through it and it feels like cottage cheese. There's a big dent here. We're going to try and get out, and on the back you can feel right where a lot of this is, there's a seam from the factory where they stitch these two pieces together. And we're going to use some really simple tools here. Nothing super crazy. So I've got a set of body hammers here. These are, I got a swap meet, no name swap meet, but I will link a set of East Wing hammers that I have as well. These are just shorter. The other East Wing ones I have are a little longer. I'll be able to get in here a little better because there's a headlight bucket right behind here. I need to be able to get in here though and swing a little more than the headlight bucket will allow, so I'm using a shorter hammer. It's also got just a wee bit of a crown to it on both sides, so that way it'll push this out in a more circular fashion. We have a dolly, just a standard dolly. This is from the Eastwood set, and the way these are done, they're just a casting into a mold, so you'll get some shrinkage. You can see here this side's pretty flat. I flattened it out after I got it, but there was a dip in here and you can still feel it. I flattened a lot of it but not all of it on a big belt sander. Same with the sides, and then the top you kind of just go over a little bit and you can see it's still not perfectly smooth, but it's a lot better. And it's a really good, it's a quality kit. It doesn't cost that much, and it's a good way to start. So we'll be using the dolly on the outside while we hammer, and we'll also be using it on the inside when we try and knock down some of these higher spots. One of the other tools we have is a slap file, which is it's just a file, a nice thick file bent with a hammer. And so this gets used, I'll have the dolly back in the back here, on this side, it'll be back here in my hand, and then you kind of just slap and push the metal, and you can see, we'll get a closer up shot here when we switch to time lapse, but you can see exactly where you're hitting with the file, and you're using the file teeth. The teeth on the file are you using to move the metal around. Metal's pretty malleable, even when it's cold. It's fairly easy to move, and so we'll fill in a lot of this, so we don't have to use nearly as much filler up here to hide this issue. And the very last thing you need, we're in a garage, it's gonna get loud, or hammering on metal. It's a good set of earplugs. These are a set of hunting plugs that I've got, Sonic 2s. They're pretty old. I've got another, I've got a full big, range headset and stuff. Earplugs are not expensive. You can get them really cheap at Walmart, like $3 a pair. Trust me, you will save your ears wearing a set of ear protection. It's super important. Eye protection as well, but we're not throwing anything in the air, so I'm not going to do any eye protection. But ear protection is the most important thing. One of the most important things. It's super important for you to be able to hear, and as you live, you need it. You really need it. So I'll do a couple of example hits here, and then we'll jump into a time lapse. So as you can see here, we started bringing this dent out a little bit, but we're also bringing it up here. We don't want to come up too high here. This is already getting a little high, so I want to be careful. And that's where I'll use a slap file with the dolly on the back, and I'll push this kind of high spot here into this low spot here. And when you hit, people always talk about, oh, lightly hitting or don't hit with your full force. You still need to, it is metal, you still need to hit pretty hard, but not as hard as you think. I know it's hard for me to hear me say that. It's a really hard thing to kind of explain to somebody without showing you. You know, holding a hammer in your hand and being like, this is how you need to hit, or this is too light. But once you try it out, that's the best way to do it. One of the easiest ways to do is go to a junkyard and buy a door, buy a hood, whatever is cheap that's damaged, buy it, it'll be cheap. It won't cost you too much, and work on body working it smooth. And it's something you don't care about, it probably costs you 50, 60 bucks. You mess it up, that's fine, it gives you more stuff to fix. So we're gonna jump into a time lapse. I'm gonna keep working on this a little bit and see where we end up. Alright, so we actually made some really good progress in the short amount of time we were working on it. And you can see one of the benefits of the slide hammer, or the slap file, is you can kind of use it to give yourself some guide marks. This is all just spray primer that's going to come off anyways, just spray paint. So I used that. As you saw, we had a big low spot here, and so I filed across it, found the lowest point, put the dolly on the outside here, and hammered it from the inside. And as you can see now, it came way up. It's a lot better here, and a lot of this came down. We used a slap file to bring this back down. You can see the seam here I'm talking about, right in here, in this kind of valley. On the other side, you can feel there's a big lip there from the weld. It starts up here and works its way all the way down to about here, right in this area, and that's that front under piece. Now, unfortunately, when we get up into this area, I can't quite get a hammer in here. There's just not enough space. I can barely get my fingers in here to really push this out. So you can make like a longer hammer and kind of come at it at its side. But what we're gonna do is I'll be getting a stud gun, and this is a good spot right here because this is like flat. And it should have a nice, follow this curve real nicely. We'll get a stud gun and we'll weld a stud on here, and we'll use a slide hammer and just kind of pull this out real slow to get it nice and round. But a lot of the rest of this came up nice. You can see there's high spots here and a low spot in here. So we would put, you know, you could hit the dolly out here and hammer from this side to push this out. You could also put the dolly behind it and use the slap file. Like this spot right here is real high. You bring that down, push this up into here, and then put the dolly back out, hammer again, check it with the file, see where you're at. So the first time you file on this side, see I went up with it, I filed up. So the next time you filed, I'd take it and I would come down across the crosshatch, check and see where we ended up. But even in those, what was it, 10-15 minutes, I got really pretty far here. With a lot of this, bringing it back out, it's still, I mean, you look at it, you can still see it's pretty hammered. Somebody abused it, so it's gonna need some good work, but it's a lot better. And we just cut the amount of bottom that's gonna be on this part by at least a third, probably a half, just with the little bit that we did. So I'm gonna kind of pull up, give it little taps on the back here, maybe use the dolly as a hammer, and just kind of tap it from the back here, kind of bring this up with my hand. Just kind of a big gentle push. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. I just want to get a general, there, it's already a lot better. Just the general shape back up And you'll notice when you're hammering, if you do try this at home, when you hammer and you're hammering from the back, and you're not going to hear anything, you're going to hear that. And then when you get it to where it's flat against the dolly, it's going to ting. And that's where you want to stop. You don't want to keep hammering where it makes a ting sound, because then you're going to start stretching the metal, and then that's where you end up with, like, there's a pimple here that's all stretched. Some of this is stretched in here, and so then you use the slap file to move the stretched part around so it's not all in one spot. Or we can use another tool that I'm looking to get, which is called a shrinking disc. We always call them shrieking discs. It's a big metal disc that goes on a grinder that has, depending on the style, it'll either have a couple of like raised edges, or it'll just have one spot that's kind of a hill out. And so you spin that. What it does is it just basically hits really fast on your high spots and heats them up, because it's hitting it so fast with the friction. Then you can come in real quick, you hit it, and it'll start shrinking some stuff down with the water. You hit it where you need it, then you quench it real quick, and the metal will suck up real tight after you heat it up, and it'll help pull some of that stretch back out. Up here is not so bad. I don't know that we're going to have to use it up here. We'll have to see what happens after we use the slide hammer here. It's really easy to stretch metal with a slide hammer. We'll have to be real careful with it, especially since it's on the weld. Weld makes metal, especially MIG welding, makes metal a lot harder to shape back to where it needs to go. That's one of the downfalls of using MIG on patch panels. If you're not careful, it'll buckle real bad, and then you have to really fight it to get it back smooth. I like to TIG, but in some places, like down on this patch down in under the nose, I'm probably going to use the MIG just to fill it in, because it's upside down. I already dropped a big bead of TIG weld on me in Austin. I don't really want to do that again. So I'll probably MIG that up and just be really careful with it. It's a nice large flat piece with not a lot of curves in it, so I should be able to control that really well. So that's kind of that's where we are with, how to body work. Really basic with just a hammer and dolly and a slap file. You can get a lot more complicated. You can use a spoon. I'll show you guys a spoon later on, how those work. And it's like the slap file, but it doesn't have any teeth, and it's a little flatter. So it's kind of more for, you've got just kind of a wave. So it'd be good for like an area like this where it's really shallow. There's not a whole big dip in here. So you'd come in, you put the dolly on the back, and you use the spoon on the back, and it's a real big area. It's kind of like using a dolly as a hammer. It's this real big flat area that kind of pushes the whole thing as a unit, and you're not going to stretch like you can with the hammer as easily. So the spoon is another really good deal, and you can make one really easily. Let me go grab one that I did make. Cost me nothing but scrap and time with the welder. I'll be right back. Alright, so here we have two different spoons. This is the one that I actually believe comes with the Eastwood kit. Again, you can see I had to kind of burnish it with a belt sander, but you get how it is. It's just a big flat piece of metal that you can put on and kind of hammer with it, or you can use it as kind of an intermediary. You put it down and you kind of tap around with it if you want to like if we had a real gentle high spot, without having to use a dolly, you could put this down and tap it a little bit, and it'll help kind of just ease that down. So you can either get this one with the Eastwood kit, or you can do what I did, is I made this piece of 1/8 inch thick steel. I cut a handle into it, bent it up out of the way so my hand doesn't really hit the steel. I got a piece of little 1 inch angle, and I welded it on real nice and thick, and just kind of chamfered the edges. And it's a nice big flat surface. It does the same thing. You can kind of tap down some of the hides with it, or use it as an intermediary, tap on it, things like that. So those are a couple other nice tools to work with, and that's kind of where we are with learning how to body work, at least the hammer and dolly work. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I know it was a little shorter than last time. but I really just kind of wanted to show the basics of hammer and dolly work on a car. There's a lot more to it than what I showed you, but it's a good place to start. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Always remember to subscribe if you learned something new. Follow us on Instagram at Foggy Designs, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.